Hi everyone, it's Veroosh. Welcome to my channel. I'm excited to be here with you guys today to talk about the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo that happened on the 21st of September at 12:30 p.m. That was the maximum Pacific time, so you can adjust for your time zone. This eclipse was a huge eclipse that is nestled in a series of 3 eclipses. We're going to talk about this in the astrology section today with an audio version of the astrology with the chart. This is an all sign, which means I'll be reading messages for every single sign as well as the tarot card messages. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming up just after the astrology. There is a series of transits that are super important right now. There's the eclipse, there's the equinox, which is happening tomorrow alongside the ingress of Mercury and the Sun into Libra, beginning of Libra season. And then there's a square between Pluto and Mars. And I want to attempt to do an all sign video for every single one of them. That's why we're still doing astrology in that audio version, which some of you guys actually like. I like putting it together, puts less pressure on me to record myself or do a live, but hopefully you guys like it. If you've been a subscriber of mine for a long time, I'm getting messages that you're not getting notified of the video. So if you'd like, just make sure to unsubscribe and resubscribe, turn on notifications, and that may tell the algorithm that you're resetting it, that you want to see videos from me. Also, you want to engage by comments or likes to make sure that you see the next video. I filmed a 30-minute members bonus the other day, and it was really good. We talked about some of the key years that are connected to the current astrology that is between Venus and Mars, but this overlapped with other astrological synchronicities that we've observed about other transits as well, so you may want to watch that video if you are a member. As always, thank you members for being members, and I'll have more content out for you guys, but these next couple transits are going to be general because they're so important for everyone to watch. So now we're going to switch over to the astrology, and then I'll be back with the tarot. This eclipse is happening in the Virgo zodiac sign. There is a small constellation that is beside the Virgo zodiac. It's beside the Virgo constellation, but it's technically near the Libra Western astrology tropical sign. It's called the Corvus constellation. It's also called the Crow or the Raven, and so I'm going to use my Crow tarot cards to do messages for every single sign. Okay? I'm glad to be back, and thank you for watching. Astrology's coming up next. Hey everyone, it's Veroosh, and let's talk about the eclipse. I'm running a bit late, so what I'm going to do is move things around. So today we're going to talk about the eclipse, and then tomorrow we're going to talk about the square between Pluto and Mars, and then we'll talk about the kite a little bit later, since the kite is something that will be with us for a very long time, and we've been covering this since 2022. I'm being targeted by some unwanted attention. It seems that certain people have gotten accustomed to using my videos and paraphrasing them in their content. And so since I'm back, I think that they're trying to bully me by trying to gaslight the fact that they've been taking my content and basically presenting my ideas as theirs. So right around the eclipse, they all targeted me. These people have used astrology before to try to harass me with, which doesn't work because I know the astrology. It's just a very mean-spirited game that they're playing, but I think I'm on top of it. If you guys have seen any post from me with quotes of my previous content, that's usually an indication that I'm pointing out that someone directly copied me. And this goes beyond copying because they're ganging up together and purposefully targeting my content in order to gaslight, I guess, that they took my stuff before. but we'll get to that in another video or maybe on Substack or something. It's a small group of astrologers. I wouldn't even say that they're astrologers. I think they're motivated by money and notoriety because half of their content is them pushing some kind of course or program or trying to sell you something. I don't know. Members know a lot about this story already, so if you're a member and you know, it's the same people I've described before. Anyway, I don't want to cry on your shoulder, and I do want to tell you about this astrology. And if you're wondering where I've been, this isn't the reason why I've been away, but I think that this situation got out of hand because I was away. And so people with issues in their personalities thought that it was easy picking to go through my content and present it as their own. But my intention was always to come back and make videos for you guys. So anyway, here I am. So let's talk about this eclipse that happened yesterday. It was a very interesting eclipse, and I'll try to explain it for you in a comprehensive way. I do have extra notes on top of what I'm presenting here. So members, if you are interested in a deeper dive, we can go back to it and talk about this eclipse. This eclipse actually transitions us between two major energy systems. As you know, we're transitioning between the energy of earth and water and moving into the energy of air and fire as the outer planets are switching signs. This is quite rare, but it does happen periodically throughout human history. It's just the alignment is very, very tight right now, which means that they're all doing this transition together, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And so it's creating a lot of interesting astrological patterns in the sky and completing certain cycles. But today's reading is not about world astrology. It's about how this large change is going to interact for you personally. And so this eclipse was really at the end of this period of time that emphasized earth and water energies. And it happened to be in the last couple degrees of Virgo, which is a mutable sign in earth. In fact, it's the last mutable sign in earth and water before the end of the year. So we get this final eclipse at the 28th degree and 59 minutes. And I just want to clarify for you guys here because there's been some misunderstanding. The point of the eclipse is not necessarily the same point as the new moon. So the new moon happened at 29 degrees and 5 minutes, where we see the sun here, but the eclipse peaked yesterday at 12:40 p.m., 12:42, at exactly 28 degrees and 59 minutes. So you may have heard that this was an Anaretic Degree Eclipse, and I'm usually really easygoing about details, and it's not completely wrong because the moon was still passing through the tail end of the eclipse when it entered the Anaretic degree. But for things like eclipses where the maximum is most important, which is the peak that happened at 12:42, which you're seeing right here, we want to be really, really specific as that's not the Anaretic degree. Not yet. It's off of the Anaretic degree by an arc minute. The Anaretic degree has a lot to do with the end of a cycle. And in the mutable sign in Virgo, it being this historic moment at the end of this transition of earth and water into air and fire, it is very significant. It's very symbolic. And we've talked about the kite before, which is the aspect pattern between Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune, here more to do with Neptune than Saturn, and Uranus, which is a minor grand trine sextile as these outer planets change signs. So we've been talking about this kite since about 2022, in which the point of the kite here was pointing at Virgo when the planets were still in earth and water. And so this is the last time that there's a significant aspect pointing at Virgo in a significant event like the eclipse to do with this large transition of power. So this eclipse in some way embodies the final moment before we move into the air energies. And like I said, we'll talk about the kite probably after the square between Mars and Pluto. And this is the beginning of these Libra energies. with the kite pointing at Mercury already earlier this month, Mars maybe last month. But under this eclipse, it's still pointing right at the eclipse point. So that's very interesting. So essentially, we're still within the Virgo Pisces axis. This is a series of eclipses that began in 2023 and will continue to 2027. This is the only new moon eclipse that we are going to have in that series, while there will be 4 different full moons in Virgo. This series is stretching out a lot because the next eclipse that we have is going to be a new moon in Aquarius, actually, in February 2026. We get 2 eclipses, new moons, back to back, Virgo and then Aquarius. So the Virgo Pisces axis is a connected energy in which for this 2.5-year period, or 3-year period, even 4, but it's not quite 4, it's like 3.5, we get eclipses alongside these signs. And sometimes it overlaps. That's why this series is so long. We had Libra, Aries eclipses right up till this year. And then we'll have the last eclipse in 2027. The Virgo Pisces axis is a blend of the spiritual in the Pisces side and the down-to-earth Virgo energies. So the themes that we are blending and exploring have to do with the divine, but also with our practical experience here on Earth. In this series, we have the South Node in Virgo, which signifies that we have finished certain experiences and we are moving on from those experiences at this time. This has to do with putting certain things to rest and also deprioritizing certain things in our lives. The effect of an eclipse like this lasts a long time. I've been hearing a lot of interpretations about the 6-month implication of eclipses. That's using the regular full moon cycle. There's about 6 months between a full moon and a new moon in the same sign. But the truth about eclipses is that their energy extends far past 6 months or even a year. Their energy lasts up to 18 years, and we'll see a little bit of that today. Previous eclipses that we've seen alongside this axis include 2015. We'll talk about that in a minute. 2007 and 1998. We'll talk about similar years and eclipses in just a little while. There's a lot of themes that are attached to this eclipse in Virgo. So I really summarized this for you guys. If you're a member and you want me to go in more about this, then somebody can suggest it in the comments and then we can vote to see if there's enough interest out there. But I think I did a good summary of all the effects of an eclipse in Virgo alongside the South Node. So everything sort of will be connected to the themes that I'll tell you about now. I think that the main thing that people will experience when these eclipses happen is that the world is going to become less predictable. Coming up to the eclipse, I want you to notice how intense and pressured things had become. And I'm purposely not going to mention world events because they are so tenuous at this time. But imagine the pressure rising up to the eclipse. It's almost like people couldn't take it anymore. The orderliness of the world, the predictability, the systematic nature. It's time for Virgo to let go to this level of control. And this affects all of us. It's the Virgo energy that's letting go. So you may have noticed coming up to the eclipse that routines lose their practical application. You're doing things for the sake of doing them, and you don't even remember what it's for. And around you may have seen rigid systems rise up and people be trapped within those very systems. Some people celebrating the systems that they are trapped in. And this is a cyclical pattern. Sometimes we need more structure and order, and sometimes we need to let go. And I think that we're reaching a time when that rigidity becomes unproductive. I think another pattern that we're going to see in the world that's going to personally affect us is that there's going to be a bit of a fragmentation of authority with regard to things like health, law, institutions. You're going to see a decline and a decentralization of these institutions that may be managed by corporations or governments. And I think people will turn to each other a little bit here for a period of time to build up grassroots systems. Again, not being overly political, but these systems became rigid and stopped helping people. And they sort of lost the grounding in the red tape. And although I'm pro social systems, I myself had seen them not work and basically spend money without application. Now, I personally don't believe they should be cut because people are dependent on them. However, from an astrological perspective, what this is suggesting is that we need a revamp and we need to touch grass with regard to how we are helping each other. And we need to develop systems that actually help other people. And so, yeah, you're going to see this fragmentation of authority from centralized forces. So the government will not have as much of an influence for a little while. And I think people will be forced to help each other or find alternative ways to help each other for a period of time. And from that new system, social systems will grow that will be more responsive and organic. I think that as all this structure is breaking down, you're also going to see a lot of change with regard to religion. Now, Saturn has just entered into Pisces. And so when Saturn's been in Pisces, there's been significant breakdown of organized religions. There's no religion, no formal organized religion has not been touched by Saturn in Pisces, I think since 2023, right? And so as that happens, the Saturn transit that's been, again, fragmenting institutions of religions, spiritual practices emerge here that are more in touch with the subjective perspective, or that subjective perspective being shared between several groups of people. I'm not saying it has to be isolationist, but not so rigid, not so institutional. So you'll see maybe institutional religious organizations having less of an influence at this time, while more spirituality as a personal practice that you share with others and being much more fluid and informal emerge. And again, out of that, at some point, more institutional systems will arise that will be more responsive to what we need. So less rigid dogmatism. Again, the theme that I saw very clearly was this leading up to the eclipse, the amount of rigidity, the amount of dogmatism that emerged. It was really like we were to the max in that Virgo energy. Make a list of everything, organize everything, everything has a rule. And even people that were behind rules and thrive in order, I think that they were feeling stretched. Like suddenly everybody felt, okay, these rules are not letting us breathe. During this time, and I'm not saying right now, but you may see these things arise already, hierarchies are going to lose some ground for a period of time. Credentials are going to change. We're already seeing that fragmentation, but it's going to increase after this eclipse now. It's more going to be about expertise, what you know instead of what your paper says, and recognition for your contribution, as opposed to some meritocratic label that you've been given. And so again, I don't mean to go over the same thing, but social service systems are going to weaken. We've already seen that as governments lose funding, but grassroots volunteering. So you'll see yourself engaging over the next few years much more in volunteering, community organization, and interpersonal care with other people in a less formal setting. We haven't had this pattern in quite a long time, so maybe you can look back to 20 years ago and see what your life was like then, and if you had similar sort of energies around you. So the other thing is that with this emphasis of Virgo for the last many years, everything was very precise, organized, and it required our full attention. One of the things with this eclipse is that there's going to be an introduction to moments when work goes unfinished. Things get a little bit sloppier. Mistakes will be made. There will be disruptions. So that positive side of Virgo that keeps everything in check will also loosen up. The positive side of that is that will create fluidity and freedom for new things to emerge. But the negative effect of that is that some things will go unfinished, and it's going to be up to us to finish the things that must go unfinished and not just leave them undone. Another major thing that's changing with this eclipse is that health focus is shifting. In other words, the things that you've been regimented about your health, diet and exercise, maybe you've noticed the focus on different dietary methods, including medicines that have emerged for the purpose of losing weight. I think that fad diets and all sorts of health conscious trends are going to be on the down and out for maybe a few years. They'll come back, but we're at the end of that trend. So that's just a top level explanation of what this eclipse, this solar eclipse alongside the South Node, how it's going to change the world and how that's going to affect your life. And so another thing to point out is how rare this is. Remember last month we did an eclipse video for 0 degrees of Virgo? This is because there was an eclipse here, just barely, as the eclipse happened within 18 degrees of the true node, which is a different calculation for the nodes. So we get a double eclipse, new moon eclipse in Virgo. And I told you in August, you can check the video out in the description, that this eclipse that happened in August has a lot to do with the future. It really does. More the immediate future. And at that time, I told you that this eclipse had a lot to do with the past, the one we just had in September. Although that's true in terms of themes, we're really wrapping up an era. There is some carryover from this eclipse. Cycles just repeat. They don't have necessarily a terminal point. The whole solar system is a circle, right? Or a fractal, a corkscrew that keeps repeating over and over with slight drift. So we have these new moon eclipses in Virgo this year. But this actually happened some time ago and will happen again in a little while. So here is a chart for September 21st, 2006. You may want to look back to 2006 to see what your life was like. General themes or general vibe. Even Virgo, Venus was in Virgo, which is similar to now. But this was the September eclipse. However, in August, there was a new moon here as well. So we had a new moon. This wasn't an eclipse in 2006. And then we had an eclipse in September, just like we do now. And in 2044, which is August 22nd for this chart, we will have another eclipse in August. And here is a new moon in Virgo in September 2044. So these double eclipses are repeating every 20 years or so. This has to do with the Metonic cycle. It's just an alignment for a period of time in Virgo that's happening. But it's interesting. I won't take the chart back to show you right now. But in 2006, you see here, this wasn't an eclipse in August, but it was an eclipse in September in 2006. And then this year, we did have this near miss eclipse, right, in August. And then the full eclipse yesterday in September. Well, in 2044, we do get an eclipse in August, a full force eclipse, just like yesterday's. But in September, the new moon is an almost eclipse, just like the weird one we had in August this year. So they sort of switch positions over the 20 years. So I thought that was a really interesting synchronicity. Another parallel that we've talked about a lot before, so I'm just going to briefly talk about it now, is the similarity in the first 3 eclipses of this series. On September 18th, 2024, we had a new moon, a full moon in Pisces. Excuse me about that. On March 15th, we had a full moon in Virgo. And then this full moon yesterday, which was a new moon in Virgo. And they all happened along very similar degrees, right at the end of the signs. During this time, we made that moon water, and I was wondering if anybody made moon water alongside these eclipses. Now that you have moon water from these 3 eclipses, you can put it together for whatever kind of practice you like. But let me remind you what was significant about this eclipse in March 2025, directly opposite to where the new moon eclipse happened yesterday, because it was very important. During this eclipse, Venus and Mercury turned retrograde, or were retrograde, and they actually finished their retrograde cycle in the same area of the chart where this eclipse was. Just to jot your memory, but I have a separate video about it. If anybody wants a link to it, ask me in the comments. But this was what I call the chiasmus. All of this energy is kind of a chiasmus. It's an interlocking pattern between this earth, water, air, fire energy. And so Venus and Mercury turned retrograde in Aries and turned direct in Pisces, locking these 2 energies together. Just to remind you, in springtime when we had these, or this was late winter technically, because these are winter eclipses, in this late winter time, there were several different planets that actually finished their retrograde in these degrees, including Saturn will turn direct in these degrees, and then Neptune as they finish their transit in Pisces. And just to remind you, in this winter time, I lost my train of thought. We had eclipses in Aries and Pisces, so even the eclipses were in this chiasmus interlocking pattern. Another interesting thing that brings the attention here for the winter time, I know it was still technically winter, March 15th, but Venus emerged from the underworld in this area as well. And Venus, when she goes retrograde and she enters the underworld, she drifts sort of over periods of time, drifts backwards, and she was emerging for a long time in Aries, and now she's begun emerging. And she actually emerged at the 27th degree this year, which is very special because that's her exalted degree. So again, the emphasis is placed right on the same axis between Virgo and Pisces. So we have Venus and Mercury turning direct in similar degrees, Venus emerging at this position, this interlocking pattern as these outer planets switch their elemental dignity. And if we look back to 2022, we'll notice that Jupiter and Neptune had their planetary cycle begin really close to where this axis is pointing at this time. So from 2022, the planetary cycle between Jupiter and Neptune began, and we're still under the influence of this cycle. This is a very special degree. I don't want to keep talking about the same thing, but this is really connected to religion, specifically, I would say Christian religion, more so than the other Abrahamic religions. And what was special is that a few months after that conjunction, Venus, Neptune, and Jupiter joined together in these degrees of Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, and Venus is exalted here. So it's extremely rare that this happened. And here we see the minor grand trine sextile. Oh, it's off of Mercury. That's right, because Uranus wasn't far enough along to make the perfect angle yet. But we were moving into this alignment. So what I'm saying is that this very special conjunction happened in the last degrees of Pisces. I would say once in a humanity moment, with this precision of closeness. And this minor grand trine sextile, which also shows up periodically. Both of these aspects show up cyclically, but never quite so together, never quite so close. So here's another eclipse from March 20th, 2015. Now we're going to talk about something different. This is the parallel connection between 2015, 2025, and another date in the future. I'll tell you in a minute. So we had this 29 degrees Pisces conjunction, or Pisces new moon. That's a conjunction between the sun and the moon in 2015. So you may see some parallels from that time to now. Here's our chart for September 2025, directly opposite to this other position. And here's a chart for March 19th through the 20th, 2034, in which there will be another new moon alongside Jupiter, again, Jupiter in the same position as 2022, and that will be at 29 degrees Pisces. So the eclipses, these are all eclipses, in 2015, March 20th, September 22nd, 2025, and March 20th, 2034, there's going to be eclipses in the last degrees of Pisces and Virgo. They'll be mirroring each other. Again, that brings these eclipses together, touching upon the themes that we've described, and you may see patterns emerge for you along these separate parallel patterns. So you can look at the first one for September 2024 until now, or you can look at a lot broader cycle between 2015 and now and look forward to 2034. I think this cycle is the missing link to that interlocking pattern in 2022. The chiasmus with Venus retrograde and Venus in the underworld emerging at her exalted degree. I think that it's all connected. And if in 2022, one of my predictions was that a holy person could be born, by 2034, they'll be 12 years old. So maybe we'll hear about who this is by then. My only point here is that all these eclipses are connected, and hopefully that was a very comprehensive way to explain to you how. And I hope if you don't have a lot of astrological experience, you were able to visualize or kind of understand this mirroring effect between the two sides. So there's definitely more to this, but the video is long enough as it is. And so my goal is to kind of keep it organized and concise. One of the major astrological features of this eclipse was the opposition to Saturn. But I'm going to move that over to our kite video because that will make a lot more sense for us to explore this theme. It's likely not going to immediately impact us. So when we consider it within that kite aspect, then it's going to help us understand its significance. And I'll talk about the eclipse in passing then. I have one more date that I want to show you guys in terms of forward thinking. We are on the precipice of a long cycle of time ahead of us. So I want to give you a couple dates to look forward to. So remember, 2034 is a key one, but also 2041, and that's what you're looking at now. And this is probably a longer pattern. We see Venus retrograde. She's in the Aries, Pisces retrograde part of her cycle. She's about to create a conjunction with the sun. In fact, I believe that this is going to be the inferior conjunction that is going to be in her exalted degree. Oh, not yet. Not yet. It's 28 degrees and 2 minutes, which is very close. Her exalted degree is 27 degrees. So in 2049, they're going to join around the 27th degree. It usually moves back by a couple degrees. So the exact conjunction may not be in 27 degrees, but this is extremely close to that exalted position for Venus. Needless to say, the symbolism of Venus emerging at her exalted degree, those conjunctions with Jupiter and Neptune alongside this degree, the eclipses that are on both sides. There's significant things happening in the astrological events connected to these dates of time. And so in 2041, we have another instant of the inferior conjunction between the sun and Venus being reborn into the morning star thereafter at the same axis degrees as the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful and interesting for you. Now we're going to move into your individual astrological readings. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. And thank you for waiting for this video. Hey Aries, so this is a message for you, Sun, Moon, Rising, Aries. The new moon eclipse happened in your 6th house. This has a lot to do with work, routine, schedules. Overall, you can see that your routines and work are going to become disrupted now, and your schedules are going to become more inconsistent. So if you have been on a steady path with steady scheduling, it's likely that at this time there will be unexpected things that come up for you more and more that are disruptive. So being flexible really helps with this dynamic. If you have been really focused on health and nutrition, some of the more regimented things that you do, such as, coffee on an empty stomach, I don't know these things, but whatever kind of ritual you have, those may break apart. Especially look for things that you systematically have been doing without really thinking about it, and you may be just doing it because of repetition. One of the best things about this eclipse is that micromanaging at work is going to decrease, whether it's from a boss or other people that rely on your work. Any heavy-handed watching over how you are doing, how much you are doing, and what you're not doing enough, that's going to slowly decrease over time, but you'll see a pattern of that decreasing. You will need to put in more time into your health in order to make it work. So things probably came more naturally to you up to this point for the last several years. And now to maintain your health practice, you're going to have to be more consciously putting in effort to fit in the time to make it work. You may notice that reliable coworkers leave your place of employment, or they may walk away from tasks that are shared with you, and therefore you will have to pick up the slack or do more work to compensate for them not being there. This eclipse signals a time in which all of us have a predisposition to walk away from things more. And so what you may see at work specifically is that if you're not careful, projects and details can get lost or missed. And so it's extra important to pay attention so as not to lose control. The positive side of that is that workplaces are going to be more flexible. So you're not going to have to be so repetitive. One of the transits that I think you should pay attention to with regard to this eclipse is the transit of Jupiter in 2026. Jupiter is going to return by June to this area of the chart, later stages of Cancer, with a direct sextile to the eclipse position. This is also going to form, or rather begin to form, a positive angle to your placements in the 1st house. And this is going to improve on your self-confidence and address issues of low self-esteem. So things that you may have felt lapsed over the last period of time, things that you missed out on, that you feel that you didn't get, you may feel something will come in your way to help you achieve it. And I think that that will help you adjust to some of the changes in the pattern in which you are working in, or the way that time flows for you in a day-to-day. Overall, I would say that pressure, especially with repetitive work, intensifies. You get more freedom. You don't have to repeat yourself so much in the same ways. So less order, less structure, less repetition. You get to do more with more flexibility. Just make sure that you're keeping on top of your health, but also make sure that you are completing your tasks and still finishing things. This looks much more like being a self-starter, watching over your own pacing, doing things when it fits your schedule, that kind of stuff. Okay? So here is a tarot message for you. Hi, Aries. So let's get into your tarot. You have some wonderful cards here. We have the Emperor, the Sun, 6 of Coins, Judgment, Death, and Hierophant. This seems as though some big moment in your life has crystallized. A situation involving a relationship or something to do with your father, or possibly to do with work or something that has a lot of structure or hold in your life, something that you've put a lot of effort into, has yielded positive results. This may have come alongside a lot of effort, and you may have seen a positive financial outcome alongside this event. There's also a situation here in which you are making a very critical decision, and it's a long time coming. It comes beside two cards, the Judgment and Death. You're making a huge decision that is very much rooted in your experiences over the last 10 years. And this experience is giving you enlightenment about life in general, about what it means in life, what life means, and general ideas and concepts that you have about life and what the right way to live is. It looks as though you have spent a lot of time thinking about the circumstances that you're involved in. There's a decision or an option that you have worked through to figure out if this is the right path. Now, something to look forward to is the amount of intensity that you've had to put into things is going to decrease. And in fact, you're able here to enjoy something as a whole experience rather than having to focus on the details of the situation too much. You're definitely making a decision to let go or to put an end to something. This is a part of a larger awareness that you are growing into. This looks like a critical moment in your life that has to do with lived experiences, growth, and expansion. I feel as though you're in a situation in which stability is quite strong for you at this time. And because of stability, you're able to engage in behavior that is at a higher level or a higher and more true form to that which you want. This could be also an offer of love from someone. Somebody's offering love to you. In fact, some of you might be turning that love down because of your self-awareness. And there's a great potential for monetary gain and growth, also to do with things that you have learned in the past, spiritual lessons, and personal insights. I'll be back with more readings over the next couple days, so make sure to come back tomorrow. Hey Taurus, let's take a look at the new moon eclipse, which happened in your 5th house. With any new moon in the 5th house, you're beginning some new hobby, pursuing new interests. But with an eclipse here, I suggest that it could last many years. Slowly at first, maybe on your own. It will develop over many years and grow into something. You may actually pick up a lot of new interests at this time, and then some will fall away when you pick and choose, and one or two may stick around over the long term. You may be noticing that certain things that you did before are just not exciting anymore. In fact, you may feel that you've been kind of doing certain things that you used to do in the past, but you may be in a different phase of your life now and you're not so interested by the same things. You're the sign that's going to be affected in terms of relationships. Not in a bad way, but I think that your desire for a relationship, to maintain a relationship, is going to decrease. So you're going to be less willing to put up with a relationship or maintain a relationship that's just not working for you. And for some of you, you may start looking towards a different relationship than you're in now. And by relationship here, I mean maybe not too serious, but love-oriented romance, that kind of thing. You may also look for a different type of relationship than what you've had so far. Maybe your relationships are primarily friendship-oriented, and now you'll want some more intimacy. Or maybe you've had a very intimate romance with someone, and now you're looking for a more friendship-based. Something like that. It's just you're likely to look to spice things up or to change things up for yourself a little bit. I think you'll see that you're interested in being more simple, so less interested in complicated things, more doing things quietly, by yourself or with only a few friends. Less to do with showing off and more like things that are down tempo things. So rather than going out and being in public spaces, maybe be outside, some kind of shift is happening towards more simple enjoyment. I think that you'll find that you're less interested in romantic drama, and that might be a big turnoff for you for the next several years. With this energy, it's going to increase. So you may have a change in a relationship alongside this eclipse, but we're really looking here at a longer pattern that may play out for several years. And definitely, if you've been involved in a back and forth with someone, something that people would call a bad relationship, or maybe like a toxic relationship where you're sort of drawn to a person, but they're not really good for you, it's likely that very quickly these will end. And alongside an eclipse like this, it's very likely that a relationship that is just not going nowhere, especially if it's causing you stress or back and forth, will very abruptly end. For those of you who have kids, this might be a moment in which kids leave home and you experience some kind of empty nest. And alongside the empty nest, new interests will arise, new things, and I think you should encourage yourself to embrace it. Now, not for everybody that will be a kids leaving home, empty nest situation, but there may be a lull where you have more time to do things, whereas you didn't have time before. And the key to success here is to actually try different things, even if it feels very different for you. So go and try different things. And even if you feel like otherworldly, like suddenly you have more time on your hands, go and explore. That exploration process is going to lead you to new interests, and just give it some time to figure out which is the best. Overall, I would say that the current transits are going to lead to improvement in your social life down the road. So even if you're doing things because they interest you now, but you're doing them alone, over a 2 to 3 year period, that's going to change. And so in about 3 years' time, these things that you're exploring now will be things that you connect with others over. I picked a transit for you of Venus in Virgo because it's in the same house as this eclipse. And Venus will be in Virgo in your fifth house until October 13th. This is a really nice combination because the eclipse brings something new in and changes things up, while Venus provides some kind of wish fulfillment, confidence, the ability to pay. Venus in Virgo, the ability to pay for the things you want, having the material ability to buy whatever it is that you need. And so overall in this transit, I think that you're experiencing less pressure, less drama. Relationships that are not making you happy are probably going to go. I think that you're looking at fewer things that you have to do, but the things that you do, you're going to enjoy more, including fewer dates. For a period of time, you might find that you're drawn to doing things on your own. I think that you should encourage that, particularly if it's driven by your interests. Those interests are going to grow into social connections, like I said, in about 3 years, up to 3 years. That doesn't mean you have to be alone. It's just a good time to explore the new interests, and those interests are going to be bridges to new people. And I do predict that some of you who have bad offenders in your love life, those bad offenders are going to go real fast. Okay? So I hope this helps. Stay tuned for a tarot card message next. Hi, Taurus. I'm excited to tell you about your tarot cards. We got several trump cards and some lower arcana. So we have the Tower, the Hierophant, the Hermit, and then we have the 10 of Wands, the 2 of Wands, and the Knight of Cups. It looks as though you have just finished something that was quite unexpected and quite disruptive. Because this eclipse is happening in your fifth house, this may be connected to a relationship, a new relationship that didn't quite work out. You may find yourself sort of pulling back and wanting to be alone, which is the Hermit, because of what you've seen. If it's not to do with a relationship, It may have to do with a situation that has provided you a lot of insight and gained you a lot of understanding of the things that you were dealing with. A lot of this reading has to do with personal insight, gaining insight and understanding into your environment. There is someone here who's the Knight of Cups who is offering you some kind of reaching out or providing you some kind of a heartfelt invitation. However, I think that your energy at this time is pretty weighed down. It's likely you're trying to figure things out, and I think some of you are going to choose to be quite alone at this time through this process. Just notice that the Hierophant and the Hermit card have the same lantern. One is standing on its own, or it's a close-up, and one is within a tree trunk. And I think that this energy works together. It's time for you to observe the things that have been happening around you, retreat a little bit, pull in, and think about the things that you have seen. Now, the 10 of Wands could be stress or things that have lingered with you from seeing what you have seen. There may be a lot of variables in your mind or things that you're considering. There may be some offer from someone that you're romantically linked to on the table, but I think you're going to have to give it some time to think about whether that offer is for you. I think you're definitely considering if the things that are happening around you fit into your bigger life vision. There's a lot of contemplation here. There's a connection to the fact that you have so many things to think about and consider. But know that if you go through this process, you are going to come out with a very enlightened perspective. Okay, I'll be back with more messages for the other transits, but thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. All right, hey Gemini. So let's take a look at your astrology, and then we'll do a little tarot next. The new moon is happening in your 4th house. This is house, home, family, that kind of thing. It does have to do with the end of situations in certain respects. What I could see with this new moon eclipse is that over a longer period of time, you could see simplification of your home, including for some of you downsizing, removing furniture, kind of making it simpler with fewer things that you have to take care of. You may also experience with this eclipse less family pressure. This is over longer periods of time. So leading up to the eclipse, you may have felt mounting pressure and your family almost presenting a vanguard against you, like a strong opposition. But as the eclipse passes and now the transits move into Libra, you will be moving away from that deadlock with any family members you've been experiencing. Likewise, if you feel that you've been pushed into family meetings, such as, oh, you have to come and be with us to family gatherings that don't bring you joy, that might become less important. In fact, all the family members may join together and kind of dislodge themselves. I didn't know the word. Discontinue participating. So there may have been some family pressure to meet and connect, and that became like a rigorous ritual. And now with this transit, you may notice that there's less pressure to engage in such intense way. Also, if you feel that you've been under great demand by family members, like they want you to do a million different things, you're going to see that your family gives you a break. So if you've been the helper and they've been putting pressure on you to help, maybe to help with other family members or just for your time, you're going to see that there's going to be much less pressure on you now to step up to those dynamics. You may find out secrets with this eclipse or some period thereafter that's actually going to change your awareness of family histories. So let's say that you know a family history about someone in your family and you thought that this was how you immigrated somewhere or how someone got married, some family myth, right? You are likely going to find out information that changes how you view that family myth. And so things that you thought were one way are likely going to emerge as new truths come out. But overall, I think that you're going to have fewer chores around the house, less responsibility, especially those of you who have been working extra hard. This is a time of less pressure on you, and family comes into balance. One of the things to think about when considering this transit is the trine between Pluto and Uranus. These planets are going to make you very ambitious and have a lot of opportunities in your career and your public life. And so one of the main challenges of this energy is to keep focus on family while new opportunities emerge for you. So it's easy to get carried away. It's easy to get distracted. And congratulations on all the success and happiness you find. But it's really good practice to keep bringing focus to family to make sure that they're okay. Just touch base with them sometimes. Overall, I think that you're heading into a much simpler life. I feel like maybe you've reached an end point in terms of family pressure. Maybe family was taking up a lot of your time and now they are maybe not so demanding. You may notice that family interactions become less constant and intense, specifically if people feel they have to. So I'm not saying you're not going to connect with your family moving forward, but I do think that the pressure to connect, the immediacy of a situation, like family reunions or special holidays, yes, maybe there'll be still get-togethers, but less pressure to go and participate. And I do think that any relationship with bad family members or members with whom you have conflict, those types of relationships are not going to pan out. This doesn't mean that it's the end of the relationship, but there could be a separation or a distancing, maybe in some cases a gray rock. A gray rock is where people don't tell each other what's going on in order to gain distance. Oh, and this is my favorite prediction for you, that family histories or secrets may become revealed to you. So I think that's going to be an eye-opening moment. Maybe not immediately, but it's coming. Okay, so we're going to switch over to the tarot and I'll catch you next time. Hi, Gemini. Thank you for joining me, and let's take a look at your tarot. There's definitely gossip in the situation. You have the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Wands. I think that this reading has a lot to do with looking for an answer, possibly to do with your family or between family members. So this gossip becomes a helpful sharing of information, possibly in a quiet way. I think you're trying to understand what a situation around you is and what it means to you. I think that maybe some of your expectations in a situation haven't been met. This is the Eight of Cups. It's ruled by Saturn and Pisces, and Saturn is in Pisces right now, so we're all getting this card in our readings. In other words, don't worry about the card bringing something negative to you. It's more of a reflection of the astrology around us. But I do feel as though there's definitely an active pursuit of information. And because this eclipse is happening in the 4th house, this is likely information about your family or between family members. The Ace of Swords here says that there's some kind of communication. You might seek out answers by reaching out to someone else, but someone else may seek out information from you as well. And so we have the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Wands, and you could be one of these queens, whether you're a man or a woman, regardless of what your astrology sign is. But it's definitely sharing of the information between two queens. And we have the Hermit card here, which is your quest for knowledge. Of course, it's an eclipse in Virgo, so many people are experiencing this. But I do think the right information is coming to you or will come to you and will put you in the right position with regard to your family members or with regard to the circumstances that are around you. So whatever is hiding from you or whatever is hard to understand will become clarified as you get more information. Now, this Eight of Cups may be tied to a situation in which you felt underwhelmed. This will be the spark of why you pursue this knowledge. You didn't get a satisfactory answer. There was something missing in that interaction that you had. And so you go on a quest for information or for knowledge, but specifically tied to your family. Family, of course, can be blood kin, but for some people, it can very much be other people who are like substitute family members. I'm really happy to see the star. Whatever you're waiting on is likely going to come out and up for you at this time. Okay, that's my tarot card reading for you guys today. I'll be back with more in the next couple days, so stick around or come back and see more about that. But thank you for watching and happy new moon. Okay, hey Cancer, thank you for joining me, and let's take a look at how this eclipse plays out in your chart. In your chart, it's happening in the third house, which has a lot to do with community. I always see it as things that are near you, so it's not necessarily just emotional closeness, it's things that are near in proximity to you, people who are near you. Even if you don't know them, like not all neighbors, just see them around. It's a really nice house. It has a lot to do with communication as well, so that's also nice. This eclipse is happening right alongside your IC, which is very important. This draws upon a lot of themes involving childhood. For you specifically, you may feel that there's a real shift in your neighborhood in terms of who's close and with whom you have distance. So certain neighbors who you felt were close to you may leave, or your relationships may slightly change, or you get closer with different neighbors or different people in your community. You may find overall that your neighborhood becomes less interactive or less inclusive. Maybe you're moving from a time in which there was a lot of closeness in your relationships with your neighbors and people who are around, or you may move somewhere and then find not the same sense of community. It's not a bad thing. It gives you more autonomy to have your own space. It's a balance of kind of yin and yang. We go through this period of ebb and flow. So now you're getting a break, a little bit more anonymity. You are the mysterious Cancer. Some of you might experience some distance with cousins and siblings, or like changing which cousins are you feel close with at this time. This is not something drastic. You just might feel yourself sort of gain a little bit different distance from certain siblings or cousins and feel a little bit closer to different people. This will also happen over several years or as a pattern over several years. It's definitely not siblings and cousins that you still want to be in touch with. It's just maybe priorities change, realities change, something is drawing you apart. You might find that if you've done a lot of certifications, such as licenses, things like that, their relevancy may become less important. So maybe in the past, like you had like a kind of like a, what is that called? First aid of some kind. Well, maybe you find that that's not so necessary anymore. One of the things that you may see as a pattern is your regular roads that you drive down or walk down. They're going to change. Maybe there's road work or maybe some kind of diversion comes up, and your regular path to work will actually change. See less pressure on short-term projects and things that you need to get done specifically close to you, physically close to you. New technologies may emerge that will make that work easier. So maybe things close to the house. You create some kind of shortcut for yourself with technology. I would tell you to watch for Jupiter over the next year or so, but specifically by June 2026. This is when Jupiter turns direct and re-enters these degrees of Cancer right at the end of your sign. This is going to create a sextile to this position where the eclipse is at, and I think you'll have some kind of activation. During this time, you may see this change happen with regard to the things that we've talked about. It could be an activation, a move forward, maybe this new phase of friendships and connections with your siblings. Maybe a new neighborhood will come up for you at that time. So in terms of the transition you're going through, I would look to June 2026 for a positive development. And specifically, I would call that a general change in your environment. So it doesn't mean that you have to wait that long for things to change or improve, but I would say that by that time, something will progress and there's going to be that improvement, a movement towards greater alignment, for example. So it's not that anything is particularly bad. It's just that you're going to move towards greater alignment with maybe more like-minded people. Or if you have two siblings, you'll move towards the one that's more like you. Maybe you're bored of one, that kind of thing. Musical chairs. So your community overall is changing, and some familiar faces will change as well. Neighbors may move. And in certain circumstances, the way you get things done will need to change. So the road you take to work or school may be blocked off. There may be some other reason. Maybe you're walking instead of driving. Maybe you're taking your bike. So there's some kind of change in the direction, in the way that you get from point A to point B. Okay, Cancer, I'm going to show you some tarot and then we'll see you next time, okay? Hi, Cancer. Let's take a look at your tarot cards. So we see the Page of Swords, the Queen of Wands, the Page of Cups, the Eight of Cups. That's Saturn in Pisces, and it's showing up all over our reading today because Saturn is in Pisces. We have the Fool and the Six of Wands. It seems as though you're in a very saturated environment with lots of people. It doesn't feel like you have too much wiggle room or room to navigate. It's possible that there are people around you who are immature or people that are in one way or another pushing and shoving. Now, you may identify with the Queen of Wands here. It doesn't matter about your gender or about your zodiac element. Or you could be more closely connected with the Page of Cups. That's a Cancer card. Or even the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords is bringing in information, some kind of insight that sparks a conversation. It really get the sense that there's a lot of people talking in a relatively small environment, like an office or some place where there's physical limitations as to how far you can go. Now, at first, I felt that the Page of Swords and the Queen of Wands were gossiping or talking intensely about something. Communication is going to show up in all of our readings today because this eclipse, alongside the previous two, were connected to Mercury. But you could be also in the situation that you are the senior person or the person who has more seniority in a situation or are more mature. In that case, you could feel very much surrounded by people who are more immature, that are reckless. It makes you feel uncomfortable. Or you're the Page of Cups, in which case you have a younger energy and you're wanting to start fresh. You want to start fresh. You're kind of tired of the same dynamics. If you're the Page of Cups, you may feel as though these two cards are stressful or stressing you out. Maybe they're too aggressively talking about something or someone. And so with the Page of Cups, there's this desire to seek a new emotional beginning, something less intense. There's definitely information being shared between people here. And in some case, this led to an apathetic sense in emotional consequences. In other words, people may not feel as enthusiastic about something as they once did before. This seems like there was a real active period of talking, social interaction, social dynamics playing out. And I think you're in the lull now after those dynamics happened. But it's not a bad reading, actually, because that's just the context. We have the Fool, okay? And then we have the Six of Wands. So whatever is making you feel uncomfortable with regard to the people that you're around, it's likely that you're going to find a way to begin something new that you desire, whether you're the Queen of Wands or the Page of Cups. I think very few of you will identify with the Page of Swords. That's the person who brings the information in for two other people. I think that there's a lot more to do with the desire of starting something new. The Queen of Wands wants to be in an environment that matches her more, whereas the Page of Cups sort of wants a fresh start, like a young person who is just wanting to explore the world or try something new. In either case, you're going to get it. The Fool is Uranus energy, and this energy is loosely trining the new moon that we just had, but definitely Mercury and the sun. So as we enter that energy more, you'll feel it more. And the Six of Wands, which is the success on the trajectory you've chosen. So this is a trust your gut kind of reading. Whoever you're feeling uncomfortable by or around, I think you've been waiting for the right time to separate or possibly find a new path. And if you've been doubting yourself to that effect, I think that these cards confirm that you've made the right decision and a new beginning will start for you now. The Eight of Cups is probably some degree of apathy. So when you found certain people charming in the past, you may not find them as exciting anymore. And it's likely because there is a mismatch between personalities here. But you're definitely getting a new start with greater personal alignment to what you really want. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back with more later and talk to you soon. Hey Leo. Okay, so let's take a look at your new moon eclipse in the second house. So the eclipse and new moon happened in your second house. That has a lot to do with material possessions and money. Through this eclipse, you're going to see that maybe there's a shift in the way that you make money. And maybe you've come out of a phase of making a lot of money with a lot of pressure and stuff like that. And so now you may move to a way to make money that's less pressure filled or more indirect. Through this time, it's likely that you're going to change the way that you budget. So the things that you had to do for money before, you're going to have to change around. Maybe some of this has to do with investment, stuff like that. But the way that you approach money is changing. Some of you may go through a purge of possessions. You may find that the possessions that you have are way too heavy and too hard to take care of. So you may find yourself selling them secondhand, donating, or giving them away to create more space in your life. You'll feel that energetically, the desire to give things away, to make room. This is a long-term transit, so you don't have to give everything away right away. Overall, I think that you're going through a mindset change in which you reprioritize what's important. For some of you, maybe the exchange of energy for money becomes an issue, and so you're willing to possibly take less money to have more time or more energy. And if you've been using credentials to gain value in the work that you do, those credentials may change, or you may need to do some kind of readjustment with regard to your credentials to gain the same benefit that you once did from those degrees or those licenses. Overall, you may move towards more natural products at this time. Again, over a several year period, you might see this wave of turning towards more organic things, or maybe natural fibers, maybe more wood, as opposed to plastics and things like that. So I made a note for myself to tell you guys to pay attention to Chiron's ingress into Taurus. This is because this is going to affect your 10th house, which is your house of career. And I think that that's a really smart observation. The reason for this is Chiron's ingress into Taurus in 2026 in June next year is going to put certain rules around your career and your public position. And so if you're doing a huge revamp of your financial circumstances, financial dominion, and maybe you've decided to take a pay cut or some kind of adjustment, maybe prioritize time over money, things like that, make those decisions with the awareness that by June 2026, Chiron enters Taurus, and that may make changes for you. For example, if your credentials are changing and you're aware that in your industry credentials are changing, be aware of that with the decisions you make. You may want to get a head start, find something else, not necessarily change careers, but maybe respecialize in something, do an extra course, whatever you need to do. So I would say think towards June 2026. This is a good change overall. I think that something is waiting for that change to arrive. You're likely not making as much money as you could. And so Chiron going through this is going to really push you to change. So you might as well get a head start. But then I also saw Venus here. So Venus is going to be in Virgo until October 13th. And this is a really good moment in order to look where your sources of money are really strong, buy yourself whatever you need. This is, with Venus and Virgo in the second house, you may want to buy yourself stuff, like stuff that you want, but really try focusing on getting the things that you need. Do you need a new phone? Do you need wardrobe for work? Do you need any practical things? This is the time when you're going to get sales and deals and good prices. And also, like, the things that you are drawn to right now, you may actually really benefit from having around. You may get a financial benefit in the long term by putting your energy into this. And so when we're looking at Chiron here with this, some kind of a possible changes in your career, stuff like that, reorientation, this is the great time to get ready right now, between now and October 13th. And don't worry, it's a long process. It's not going to be bad. It's just that's how I would prepare for that transit, and especially with this new moon eclipse in the second house. So overall, I do think that you're going through a pattern of less financial pressure, whether you take pressure off of yourself by requiring less possessions, or maybe just circumstances improve in such a way that you don't feel so stretched financially. Also, maybe a tendency towards less spending, which is always good for the pocketbook, for the portfolio. I don't know how to say it, for your money. But I think that the most significant thing that you'll notice over the next several years is a shift in value, shift in what you prioritize. The things that you think are very important to you now may become less so in the future. Okay, so stay tuned. I'm going to do the tarot card reading next, so you can just check that out. And I'll be back with another reading soon. Take care. Bye. Hi, Leo. Let's take a look at your tarot cards. We got the Magician, the High Priestess, and the Emperor as your trump cards. Then we have the Knight of Cups, the Four of Wands, and the Two of Wands. These cards are repeating a lot for a lot of the signs, so you're definitely in good company. It seems as though you've made a bold move. The combination of High Priestess and Magician with the Knight of Cups signifies to me that you pursued something that you felt very passionate about. Because this eclipse is in your second house, this is something that could potentially have for you long-term financial consequences of a good nature. So something began for you of a financial nature that will carry over a long period of time. But you did take a risk. That's the Magician and the High Priestess. Now, it could be an educated risk because the High Priestess is there. You understand something about the situation. But I do think that you put yourself out there in some way to get what you want. For some of you, this is actually an offer of relationship with someone else. It could be a proposal for marriage. The Magician, the Knight of Cups, the Emperor, and the Four of Wands. And I think that it sparks your vision of a very bright future. Now, this proposal may be the context, so you're maybe already aware of a relationship becoming more serious. And so because of this, you're making financial decisions that are meant to guide you towards that goal of love. In other decks, this is the couple that is standing under an awning together. They're in love. And so this is often called the marriage card. And we have the Emperor also, which is also a marriage card. In the second house, we have to consider that this has to do with a proposition for making money, such as people working together, you deciding to start a business or improve on the business that you have. The final card in the reading is the Two of Wands, which is expansion of possibilities. Money's coming in. This gives you greater opportunities and greater variety to think about. And so this allows you to consider many different ways that your newfound options are making available to you. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back shortly with more videos. Maybe check out a sun, moon, rising video for another part of your chart. Hey Virgo. Okay, so the eclipse. The eclipse is in your first house. There are so many eclipses in Virgo, and this is the only new moon, so it's important for Virgo. First house has to do with the self, your interaction with the world at face value. With a new moon eclipse here, there's a new self-image. It's a time to adjust and change what you're like. So maybe the world around you is changing, especially with these outer planets switching signs, as we said in the astrology part. And so now maybe it's a time to adjust and change to fit the new times. With this eclipse, you're going into a pattern of less pressure to show up for other people, be less on demand in terms of giving your time away. There's a lot of lessons here about helping others. One of the lessons for me, I'm a Virgo, that came up right before the eclipse was the awareness that sometimes and I think it's a real Virgo lesson, awareness that helping people out may lead to resentment if people are insecure. So if you help an insecure person, that person may turn around and try to level you after to bring you down because they feel uncomfortable with the help you've given. So all of us who work in helping professions, we really struggle with that. There's always most people are really thankful and happy, but there's a certain type of personality, usually it has to do with insecurity, that if you help them, they are going to resent you and dislike you for it. So maybe with this eclipse, you're going to see less pressure to show up, less pressure to demand, to help, to step in. Those opportunities are going to be there for you, but I think you're going to be available for your own needs much more now. I think that with this shift, you're going to start to see that different people come up in your life, people that you were not necessarily close with before. So be really open to making new connections. I think you'll find that you are looking in the direction of people that are not aligned with you and out of habit or commitment or whatever else. You kept looking in that direction, and I think that you'll see and be pleasantly surprised that there's much better alignments waiting for you. And when you start looking around, you're going to see much more genuine connections. I think some of you guys have been waiting for this shift, so it's coming now. You may have felt that you were actually forcing relationships for a while, not in an intense way, but just kind of not feeling it anymore, but continuing. And when I say relationships, I mean all sorts of connections. Friendships, more romantic ones as well. This doesn't mean that you have to break up with people or ghost people or, disconnect from other people, but you'll just see that there's other people out there with whom you feel much stronger alignment. I think that some of us will feel more comfortable being alone, so more emphasis on wanting to be alone, more time alone to figure things out. Not necessarily like large life decisions, but more like, I want to learn pottery or I want to learn this or that. And so you spend that time doing those things, and you're not necessarily so interested in networking to pursue hobbies, things like that. Some of you guys may be reading a lot more during this time. I'm definitely a reader, so I'm excited for the books that are ahead of me. There's a couple really big books I've been putting off, books that take some people a year to read. So, I'm definitely, I have a couple lined up. And all this pressure, less pressure means less criticism, both from yourself and from the outside world. And that really connects with my little observation about gratitude and about how people react to being helped. Because that's a Virgo trait. We want to help people. We want to step in and provide some assistance. But people with funny boundaries, that kind of thing, they misconstrue that. One of the things I notice as a Virgo is I'm very helpful and I try to make myself available to as many people as possible. but I noticed that people get jealous a lot. So if you don't give equal attention to everybody, some people will internalize that and hold that against you. So like you're helping as many people as you can, and someone notices that like you didn't reply fast enough or something like that, and then they get upset with you. A lot of people have rejection issues, and I think it's tied to that. But that's a Virgo problem, and that's why we sometimes get a bad rap, because when you're helping people, a lot of times you're triggering people, because a lot of people have weird relationships to being helped. One of the transits that is beautiful for you right now is Venus ingress into Virgo until October 13th. So this is a great time to reinvent yourself. It's really about your relationship to the outside world that's changing at this time. And so if you notice the world is different in relation to you, the nuance, the vibe is different, try to respond to that as soon as possible and start figuring out like your new vibe in this new context. It's not about changing yourself completely. It's just more of a realignment to who you will be over the next 5 to 10 years. And welcome that change and be excited for it. So you'll notice that there's a lot less pressure for you to conform. Another thing that I have a lot to say for Virgos today, but another thing is when you're giving service and when you're helping other people, people expect you to be a certain way over and over again because that's what's familiar to them. So with that change, with that de-emphasis of providing service, you may actually feel less pressure to be a certain side of yourself. It's almost like they want you to be that side of yourself with them. It's like a nurse, right? Like you have a professional nursing personality as a nurse. So when you're working, you're that personality. It's almost that you have to show up that way. And so Virgos have that kind of quality, and people want us to show up a certain type of way for them. And so when there's less pressure for you to provide that service, then you can be all these different aspects of yourself. And I think people, like I said, have weird relationships to being helped and interacting with others in this way. So you may notice that there's going to be far less people telling you who you are and telling you their opinions of you. And you'll have much more space for focus and attention to reading books or making pottery or whatever you want. And this is a necessary stage for Virgo. This is the beginning of productivity. So when we have room to breathe and be ourselves, then we can push forward with our tasks and ideas. But a very nice transit here of Jupiter in your 11th house. We'll talk about this more on another time, but what I would say with Jupiter in Cancer through your 11th house, we're really looking at definitely an influx of good people also around you. So don't isolate yourself too much. There is this influx of good connections around you at this time. Okay, so let's take a look at your tarot message. Yours was definitely the longest interpretation. Probably has to do with my impressions of this eclipse. I really like this eclipse. I had very pensive moments of thinking, and it really tied certain issues up for me in terms of awareness and things like that. So I hope that it was meaningful for you. We'll still get more eclipses, but this was the new moon eclipse. Hey Libra, so let's take a look at your chart and kind of think about what this means for you. Hi Virgo, let's take a look at your tarot. We got the 4 of Swords, the 6 of Cups, the 2 of Wands. This is showing up for everyone. We have the Lovers, Page of Swords, and the Temperance card. This full moon eclipse just happened at the end of your sign, that's right. So you're feeling probably pretty tired, pretty exhausted. I think that this is finding you in a quiet moment. There's a lot of reflection about things that bring you joy and happiness. And we have the 6 of Cups. Relationships that are important, whether they're here now or remembering a soul connection from the past. Venus has entered Virgo at the same time. So in terms of love frequency or love energy, this is strong for you now. You may be reminiscing or thinking about someone who's important to you at this time. Saturn has re-entered into Pisces, right? So there may be this second chance that is on your horizon, particularly to any relationship that has not worked out in the last 2.5 years or so while Saturn was in Pisces. So Saturn's ingress into Pisces from now until February 2026 maybe creating an environment in which you're thinking about someone from the past and considering reconnection. This person is very important. So this isn't just some casual hookup, or this is someone with whom you thought that there would be this powerful connection. Someone with whom there was vision, definite vision that you had for yourself. But it's a good feeling. It's this feeling of I'm here and I'm safe and I feel good. And because I feel good, I can think about the things that matter. And those things are providing me a vision of who's important or what's important. You may be actually spending a lot of time with a loved one. This could be a romantic partner, but this could also be a family member. There's some important communication that you're having. Some of you are thinking about reaching out to someone from the past, or someone is reaching out to you, but they're definitely on your mind. There's this reminiscing energy about the past here. Whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen slowly, which is nice. Temperance in a love type energy is really sweet. It just means you don't have to rush and things will come into focus for you over the next several days or weeks, whatever is a slow pace of this energy. I think there's an energy here of understanding why things are the way they are. And with the slower pace, this gives you room to breathe and consider what you're experiencing. But there's definitely a very strong, heartfelt connection to someone. And you're definitely considering that connection with that person. Okay? I'll be back with more messages soon, but thank you for watching. Hey Libra, so let's take a look at your chart and kind of think about what this means for you. I think I really like your eclipse. It happened in the 12th house. The 12th house, in my opinion, and the 8th house are probably the houses that are hardest to explain and most often explained incorrectly. It's more of an abstract thing, and the 12th house is very fluid. By fluid, I mean is that the meaning has a lot of variance to it, and there's much less concrete meaning. There are certain things that are consistent about the 12th house through various interpretations, but there's much more variety here. And it's a very dynamic place in the chart. I really like it. So one of the main things that you'll be happy to hear is with an eclipse here alongside the south node, I think that there's going to be a phasing out of old enemies. So people who caused you stress, particularly people with whom you didn't have an easy time to address an issue. So there was indirect conflict. So, just tension with people who stressed you out. Those kinds of connections are not going to be around so much or become less important. So you're not going to see them. You're not going to have to interact with them. Suddenly they're not there. You may also let go of certain relationships to people in your family, particularly if there's secrets. If there's secrets in your family concerning someone, and especially if there's like a level of discomfort with regard to this person or people, you may see that there's also separation. None of these transits are talking about like giant problems or fights. This is really about suddenly the disappearance, or it's kind of like walking into a fog. Suddenly they're disappearing. It's not like dramatic or there's an end in a family. It's just suddenly they're not going to be around as much. It is true, and this is maybe a tougher one, that there could be potential of new karmic things emerging. Now, I don't use the term karma very often in my readings. I think that the term karma, first of all, some South Asian people express that they don't want us to use that term. And so out of respect for their culture, I've kind of phased using that out. But in terms of like just as a principle and stuff, I feel like it's misconstrued and misused so much in Western society that using that word is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of chuggy. Chuggy's chuggy, but it just doesn't fit well for me. I think if a South Asian person uses it, I have no issues with that. Just for me, it doesn't feel right. But if by karmic in this case, I mean, it is a good word to describe certain energies. Karmic stuff emerging in the 12th house has a lot to do with some idea of destiny or some idea of something meaningful coming in from some subtext that you're not aware of. Something is not clear, something is hazy, foggy, and something new comes in as a theme in your life during this time. This could involve family. It's usually close to home kind of stuff. So it's not, randomness, but you might see a theme emerge in your life that you're going to have to work through or figure out, or some new dynamic is emerging in your life. It might take a couple years actually for it to fully emerge. So you might start looking for that pattern already. Overall, this 12th house eclipse alongside the South Node is positive. Any issues that you have with schools, governments, NGOs, like those are non-government organizations like social services type things. If you're up against some institution that's hard to navigate, or if you have a blockage like documentation, or it makes me think of like 1984, documenting lists and kind of the insanity of trying to access information. If you are institutionally bound somehow, like you're trying to get to something, but there's bureaucracy or red tape, those issues are going to resolve. And I think quite quickly now. I think that you're probably about to hear some kinds of secret that's very important to you, something that's been around you or near you that's coming up for you now. And particularly, the influence of institutions on your life is probably going to become less pronounced. So if you were really dependent on, a government agency or school institution, I could see their influence becoming much less intense on you now. It's also a time, if you've put a lot of work into something, that work you're going to see pay off. The transit I kind of picked for you that goes really well with this, that you can track this energy, would be Chiron. Chiron is leaving your 7th house right now, and it will be out of your 7th house by June 2026. It'll go back and forth for a while, but you may have noticed that while Chiron was in your 7th house, your personal relationships were sluggish and less than supportive. And I think that as Chiron leaves your 7th house, you're going to feel much more support from other people, and that's going to support you in any institutional interactions that you have. I think overall this transit is going to decrease the amount of pressure on you, bring you clarity, increase your amount of support that you have, particularly next year. And I think that you might have some secrets revealed that are going to open some opportunities for you that you were locked out of. You may notice that there's a few really good and honest people around you helping in your circumstances. Okay, so we're going to switch over to the tarot now, but I hope this was helpful. Okay, so Scorpio. Hey Libra, let's take a look at your tarot cards. You have the Death card, the Four of Swords. The Eight of Cups is Saturn in Pisces, and it's showing up for everyone in this reading. Saturn is in Pisces at this time. And then we have the Knight of Cups, the Page of Cups, and the Nine of Wands. I think a stressful situation is coming to an end. This eclipse happened right before the Sun enters Libra and before Mercury enters Libra, as well as the Moon. So with the eclipse, ramping up to the eclipse, I could have seen you quite stressed out. There could be a situation that had come to an end. And there could be sort of dull feelings about a situation, like just apathetic and not necessarily charged at all. You might have spent some time resting or sleep during this time, just allowing a situation to be over. Now, moving forward, and this is a reading for the eclipse, so still in Virgo, not necessarily the kite, which will be the focal point for your sign, which will be the next video I do. But the Knight of Cups and Page of Cups does show that there's a spark of emotion, possibly between people. Somebody might have new feelings for someone, and there may be an offer that is being exchanged. Somebody's giving an offer or making a suggestion. I feel like you know something that you don't necessarily are not sharing. It's almost like knowing something about your partner that they don't know you know. And I think it gives this feeling that you're somewhat separate because you have to figure out how to tell them that you know, and it's giving you great insight into that situation or that person. So you're sort of like the fly on the wall watching things happen, and you're presented with some kind of emotional offer, but you need to contemplate or think about it by yourself, which is the Nine of Wands here. This is you considering or thinking about needing some time alone to consider the situation. Something has changed for you in your perspective, but I don't think people know. And I think that there's this, your feelings are hidden in the situation. And as new things emerge for you, I think this information that you have about the situation or the relationship, it's almost like giving you an advantage to understand what's going on around you. It helps you to understand the emotional interconnection in context. But you shouldn't feel pressure in this case. Just figure things out. I see you almost like in your room or in a private space in your car, separating yourself from something to think about what the best choice is. But your heart is very much sparked up. Like you feel very excited about an issue. Whether you're this person or this person, there's some kind of a spark, excited about something new. There's an element of emotional fulfillment in a situation. You just need some time to think about it because of the past and because of possibly going through something over a long period of time and thinking about whether it's worth it to go through it again. Okay, Libra, thank you for watching, and we'll be back with another video, especially for the kite, which you want to look out for because this affects your sign directly. Scorpio, this new moon eclipse is happening in your 11th house. So we are going through a purge of friendships and social connections. You may distance yourself from a particularly dumb group of people, and you may find yourself really drawn to new connections. Your newfound interests, particularly the ones that you have mulled over, like tried to figure out over the last couple years, may draw you towards new connections. And it makes doing things with people that you're already familiar with, the things that you do that are not interesting that you share with those people, is going to make you completely not interested in doing them. So you're not going to go against yourself and do things that you're not enjoying. Through this transit, you may notice that your network gets smaller, but less full of problematic people. And it begins to grow almost immediately in a better direction. So the nuisance of having bad attitudes or problematic characters around you that you have to navigate, that gets removed, and almost immediately you're growing in a positive direction, especially with Venus going through Virgo like that until October 13th. There's going to be immediate boost in terms of friendship connections, things like that. Through this new moon eclipse, you may notice that you shift your time in spaces where you interact with people. So you may be spending time in completely different environments. I also had a vision that people have seen you from far away. Maybe not, it doesn't have to be like really far away, but somewhere else than where you are. And they had a very deep connection with you. So I think you're moving towards some heart-centered connections. I did pick up on the fact that there's likely a domineering energy in your social group. It may not be between yourself and others, but just between the different people. Whatever energy is domineering a group of people that you're attached to, that energy is going to leave. And that imbalance is going to be removed. So if you're experiencing stress from the way that other people are handling this, whatever imbalance is happening, there's going to be a great improvement, an improvement to your social circumstances as a result of that. Now, Mars just entered into Scorpio and almost immediately squared Pluto. That's a huge influence on you at this time, although it's not going to last a long time. Mars will be in Scorpio until November 4th, and that will give you more energy. But through this transit, people may feel that they're less at ease with you asserting yourself. Mars in Scorpio for Scorpio Sun, Moon, and Rising is really intense transit because these Scorpio energies come across as very intense in and of themselves. With the added transit of Mars, it's going to make those Scorpio traits even more intense. And so you need to kind of walk on eggshells a little bit here with everybody, because you will have a tendency to come across as very intense. And especially if you're speaking, Mars is associated with speaking. I would just suggest that you are very aware of the environment that you're in, the types of people that you're around. You don't want to stir the pot too much with this transit. Overall, you might see a shift in friendships, maybe a turning of inward more, being more reclusive from this group of friends or from any groups of friends that are not working out for you at this time, especially if there's like an imbalance that's causing stress or drama. You may actually choose solidarity a bit more. Before Mars entered Scorpio, it did form an opposition to Chiron in the 6th house. This may make some of you come into this transit, Mars in Scorpio, with a little bit of tension. You may feel more vulnerable and reacting to that vulnerability. And so it brings up awareness of what motivates you. You may notice that you're not motivated enough. And so as Mars enters into Scorpio, that motivation rises for you again, but it's an informed motivation by thinking about whatever it is that made you feel less than confident. So this is basically, you're getting a surge here with Mars and Scorpio. Just don't overdo it, or just keep it to yourself. It's a really good transit, so you should get a lot done, and best of luck to you. And I think that I see you sort of side-eyeing, groups of friends that are unhinged or out of balance. Okay, so I'm going to do your tarot reading next, and I'll see you next time for astrology. Hey Scorpio, thank you for joining me. Let's take a look at your tarot. So we have the Knight of Swords. We have the High Priestess. She's come up a lot. The Page of Cups. We have the Knight of Cups, the Two of Wands, and the Nine of Pentacles. Okay, so these cards have shown up a lot, these four. And you saw how I pick cards. It's completely random. So this is a strong energy that's coming up for all the signs. Whatever's happening for you, Scorpio, there's definitely a financial outcome that's positive. The Nine of Coins has to do with Venus in Virgo, and Venus is in the 11th house, in your 11th house in Virgo at this time. So there's some kind of success in a situation. If you've been waiting on an outcome involving friends that has some kind of element of financial gain associated with that, you are going to see the outcome of this. There's also an emotional decision that's being made between people. They have some kind of a spark towards an aspirational goal that they're seeking. And I think that you're sort of waiting on them to decide. This has to do with friends. It has to do with social connections with other people, something that doesn't necessarily affect you directly, but you're connected to in some way. Of course, Mars is also entering Scorpio in a couple days, which will give you a lot more energy. At this time, it's likely that you're sitting back and seeing your friends deliberate on an issue or trying to understand. I have a feeling that there's someone in your circle of friends, and this Knight of Swords is problematic, but especially in this card, it kind of draws some dark symbolism. I have the feeling that there could be a false prophecy involved in your circle of friends. This is someone saying something that is not true. A rumor or someone said something that wasn't actually accurate, someone who's convincing people to think a certain way, you may want to pay attention to this person and see if there's something to do with that. Somebody's stirring the pot in your circle of friends. But I think two people in particular are going to have this key communication and conversation about the issue. And this is going to help you to understand. They're going to reach an agreement or an understanding. And when they reach that agreement or understanding, then there will be movement forward. And then this will lead to a positive financial outcome. So in other words, I think you're meant to sort of pay attention, be aware of the fact that there's a third variable that's in play here. And soon enough, you'll be able to move along with your goals and your ambitions, and your friendship area of your chart your friendship aspect of your life will calm down a little bit. It seems like your circle of friends is going through something at this time, but it's soon going to resolve and have a positive outcome. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll be back soon with another video. You want to look out for that Pluto-Mars square, because just as Mars ingresses into Scorpio, it's going to square Pluto right away, and that's going to have a huge effect on you. Hopefully a good one. Okay, see you soon. Take care. Bye. Okay, hey Sagittarius, it's Veroosh. Let's take a look at your messages for the astrology for this eclipse that happened in your 10th house. Don't worry about it being like a day late. We're talking about transits that are going to last with us for several years, so we have a lot of time to think about that. You may notice that there's a real shift in terms of your career. There may be a slowdown in your career overall, and it's going to be very gradual, nothing that you don't want. You may notice that old contacts, old references, professional connections, those shift. And so the people who were really important for your career in the past, you're noticing that you don't need that reference or you don't need that connection. Some of you might be switching your career. And one of the things that seemed true is that the reason that your career starts to become de-emphasized is that family obligations become more important. This could be things like helping your family out, or possibly, building a home, building a family, maybe focused on your partner a bit more. This could also be like a home-based business and moving away from corporate or a public job. So a lot of this is involving things that you care about and things that you love. And love is a huge motivating factor for any changes that you may pursue in your career. These ambitions, these love ambitions that you're experiencing right now that are prompting you to make a change, may make you ready for taking risks in your career. This is, I'll change a career path, I'll try something else. So many of you are going to be ready to make those kinds of changes. Some of you may be frustrated with some of your old projects, some of your old systems in work, your position, especially if that position is holding you back from something that you feel is yours or a direction that you need to go. So if somebody's wasting your time at work, not promoting you, not giving you expanded responsibilities, I think that you're getting ready for making certain risks with your career. Some of you may be inspired by an unconventional career path, and so you may take a risk towards an unconventional career. When contracts come up at work, you may actually be renegotiating your career. So it might have to do something with completion of contracts, your responsibilities. One contract finishes and another begins, and you're negotiating those things. Some of you are going to try to take a unconventional path, but give yourself some time and room for exploration. So try on many different things before you fully decide. And when you're making changes, I have a sense that some of you might rush in terms of career changes. I think that's the wrong path. You need to go slowly and explore different options and see what's out there. Now, Saturn's entering into Aries in February 2026. Actually, Neptune and Saturn are going to form a conjunction. And so I think that some of the pressure at home is going to change by February. You don't have to wait that long, but that's really going to be the changing point. And I think if home is causing you to feel like you have to change your career or give something up, try to make it to February because things may change in terms of your responsibilities then. So if you have room to wait, I would advise that you wait with career changes that are informed by responsibilities at home and things that you need to do. Overall, I think that in terms of, I don't think it's a slowdown in your career. I think that it's a slowdown of NPC behavior, like mindless doing something that doesn't resonate. So I think that less demand on you is placed to kind of run off your feet and more meaningful steps that you're going to take. And you're going to be sort of in charge of that. This could lead to career changes, shifts in priorities as well. And for some of you, you may actually have less time for a career because maybe home and family become more important. So I did a tarot card reading. That's going to be next. I'll catch you next time, okay? Bye, Sagittarius. Hey, Sagittarius, let's take a look at your cards. You're getting a lot of overlap cards with the other signs. All the signs are getting similar cards today. We have the Nine of Coins, which is Venus in Virgo, and Venus has just entered Virgo, so we're right in time. We have the Five of Coins. The Empress is Venus again. Then we have the Page of Swords, the Hermit, which is Virgo, and the Six of Cups. Well, some of you are doing something really nice to do with your mother. You're either giving her money or providing for her some financial assistance. It's also possible that if you are in the mother or matriarch role, that money is coming to you from someone else. There's financial increase, especially if you feel that you've been struggling financially or experiencing some kind of difficulties. Whatever the situation, there's a really sweet connection here of an emotional nature, supportive nature. So because this eclipse is happening in the 10th house, this has to do with social roles. It's not necessarily to do with your career directly in this instant, but this could be a situation in which you really feel that your social role is to be of help to someone, or there is help coming to you of a material nature because of your social role as a mother. If you're a single mom, or if for whatever reason your kids are giving you money or helping you out financially, and there's this fulfillment or there's this feeling that the roles have been correctly played out, that everything played out in the way that you wanted it to. Now there's a letter coming to you that you're probably going to read privately. So I'm not sure if you're like sitting down or if you're somewhere separated and you're reading over something. This is going to have to require that you give it some private consideration. Overall, I think you're happy, but you're thinking about a letter. It may be a letter involving an increased amount of money, but I think that maybe you're considering the fact that there's some aspect to it involving isolation. And so you're second guessing whether or not that's the right opportunity for you to pursue. Needless to say, I think you're very happy. We have the Six of Cups. Whatever is going on for you with this transit, it's bringing happiness, the things you want, the right connection with people. Now, if you're partnered up with an Empress, there's also this emotional fulfillment. There's this soulmate kind of feeling, a deep emotional connection between you and them. And for some of you, you're going to be spending time alone working on your skills, possibly, maybe like on the computer doing some kind of course to get the job that you want. You're moving from a position in which you feel there's maybe not enough money coming in. Through skill acquisition, through learning, through self-study, you're going to get to a place where you're much more confident in reaching your career goals with maybe the ambition of making more money. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back with more videos on the Kite, which is the transit that we're entering right now as I film this video, or the Pluto-Mars square, which we are also beginning right now. See you next time. Okay, hey Capricorn, thank you for joining me and welcome to my channel. So we're going to take a look at this eclipse for Sun, Moon, Rising Capricorn. It happened in your ninth house, which has to do with like ideology, long distance travel, kind of worldview sort of things, where your mind goes, the body follows kind of stuff. With an eclipse here, you may have a change in the way you travel. Your travel may become more low key or more solitary as opposed to what you've been traveling like over the last several years. Look back to 2016, did I say 2015, to see if there's something similar in terms of timeline to that year. So this is a wonderful eclipse if there have been barriers in your path towards a certain goal. So if you want something, especially if it's at a bit of a distance, you may notice that this eclipse is actually removing obstacles for you to be able to get that or get there. That's not something to do with like your force or your ability to do so. You'll notice that these obstacles that were in the way, they're not going to be in the way anymore. If you're studying Capricorn, some of you are going to experience interruptions to your course of study, or you may be really considering a change in a program. If you're thinking of changing your academic program, I can't tell you what to do. It's a personal decision, but just know that astrologically that decision is timely. And by that I mean that astrology is suggesting that some of you might be reconsidering that path, and that's astrologically aligned. Some of you are going to have to make sure that all your licenses, certifications, diplomas are up to date. So make sure that nothing's expired, especially if it's tied to your work. And for some of you, travel becomes much cheaper because of something. And specifically, something shifts that allows for cheaper travel, or maybe you get to travel for work, which allows for you to travel alongside working. Through this whole process, and this is several years, you're going to think about the world differently. There's going to be experiences in your life that are going to cause you to rethink things through. And for some of you, there could be someone far away who's asking you to change your life, to be near them. This could be a romantic interest, something like that. Venus is in Virgo until October 13th. This could be a trigger point for messages of love inviting you. But it doesn't have to be love. It could be a friendship, and they're inviting you to see them or, to move possibly. I sense the possibility of journeys, faraway journeys and moving, maybe with invitations. Okay, so with this transit for you, what I would pay attention to is the Sun and Mercury and later Venus through your 10th house until October. And there's going to be a new moon in Libra in October as well. Pay attention to that too. This is because this transit is going to give you insight on your career status and things to do with work. A lot of this has to do with changing what you do, things like that. This transit that's happening now in Libra is going to give you insight into how much leeway you have to change and choose. Overall, I think that you're getting restless, and I think that you're looking to change your nearby surroundings. There's probably a considerable amount of daydreaming involved, and also changing your mind on certain things. There's a longing. There's a very much like looking towards something far away, longing for something far away. And for those of you who have a sweetheart far away, or someone that kind of sparks your heart, that person may be asking you to join them or connect with them to bring you in close. Okay, so I did a tarot card reading message as well, so you can go and watch that now, and I'll be back with more messages for Capricorn later. Take care. Hi Capricorn, thank you for joining me and welcome to your tarot reading. So let's take a look at your cards. We have the Six of Wands, the Nine of Cups, that's the first time this has shown up, Eight of Swords, the Lovers, Knight of Cups, and Nine of Coins, sorry. So these cards have shown up a lot. These have shown up a lot for all the signs. So this probably has to do with like a greater energy that's around us. What this to me suggests is that you're moving beyond or above some of the things that you have been confronting for quite some time. So let me be more specific. Some ideas and assumptions stood in your way. This has to do with accepting a job that is less than good for you, accepting a situation that's less than good for you. And I think you're having a revival here of awareness. Suddenly, something that you thought you have to put up with, you don't necessarily need to. And it becomes like a much easier issue now that you come back to it. Maybe you're holding yourself back from a relationship because of a lot of beliefs that you have, or maybe you've been single for a while and you have all these things in your mind that say you're not ready or you don't want to be in a relationship. But I think that with this eclipse, those things in your mind that are holding you back are being removed. There is someone here, someone with whom you feel very close with. For those of you who are not in a relationship, this may be another close friend or a close connection. The point of this reading is that whatever you want to achieve, it's coming closer for you, and it comes tied to money. So there's two messages here that are very strong. Basically overcoming something within your own mind. It's time to move past something, whereas maybe before you felt it wasn't time yet. Now we're getting to that point where you feel it's time, and maybe someone's waiting for you for that connection. And so now you're sort of ready to build that bond. And then conversely, there's something to do with work where you wouldn't allow yourself to work or do something. And now with this change of mind frame, the conditions are improving to make it tolerable for you to accept. And therefore, you're able to achieve the goal that you want or seek the goal that you want, including the compensation that you're looking for. That's Venus in Virgo. That's why we're all getting this card, because Venus has just entered Virgo a few days ago. This also has this agreement between people who know each other very well, coming into agreement towards a financial goal or a financial outcome, a shared goal, something that you've wanted to pursue for a long time. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. See you soon. Hi Aquarius, let's talk about the eclipse that happened in your 8th house. So changes in your life, beginnings and endings, may have been incredibly intense, especially in the last few years. Now that the eclipse has happened in your 8th house, the amount or the intensity of changes is going to become less pronounced and less intense. You should expect more stability because of this. If you haven't figured out your dopamine seeking behavior through this time, it's really important that you release as many attachments to dopamine seeking as you can. Dopamine seeking is the use of substances, but also scrolling online, computer use, or even shopping. So anything that synthetically provides you with dopamine, we can get really attached to that. You really want to try to remove any such behaviors. As the eclipse has happened now, your debts will be easier to resolve. So if you owe money to someone or in a situation, you will have an easier time figuring that out. However, you're going to have to put in the effort. It's not going to just line up itself. You're going to have to put some thought behind it or some action. Likewise, tax issues will be easier to resolve. But again, it comes with your own agency and your own effort. Sometimes an eclipse in the 8th house like this could signal the end of a marriage. Of course, this only applies to people who are in a marriage that's not working or that is stressing them out. If you have been very careful with your money or shared money with a partner, you should see positive results. Specifically, things like investing, things like that. You should be seeing positive outcomes as a byproduct of this eclipse. Over the next few years, I could see you broadening your investments and diversifying, making connections with new people towards common goals. Again, the core of this is your agency, so you have to choose to do this, or you have to align this for yourself. The thing that I would watch in relation to this is an eclipse in February 2026. That's a new moon eclipse in Aquarius. We get 2 back-to-back solar eclipses, one in Virgo and then one in Aquarius in 2026. That new moon eclipse is going to provide for you new ways to assert yourself, and especially in relation to Pluto now being in your sign. And if you're involved in some broadening financial situation, a marriage, something's developing here as a byproduct of this eclipse, your adjustment time period for that would be about February 2026 for a meaningful change at that time to arrive. This doesn't mean you have to wait till then. It's just a way to understand like the arc of this timeline. Overall, I think that this eclipse is good for your money, less pressure financially. If your partner's being unstable financially, it's likely that that's going to change or dissolve. I would expect a decrease of money complicated adjacent issues. So if you're involved in a situation that has a complication with money, that's going to become smoother for you. Less change, less instability. And for some of you, this might mean an end to a relationship, but a bad one between now and 2027. Okay? I'm going to post your tarot card reading now, but I'll catch you soon. Hey Aquarius, thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at your tarot. So we have the Four of Swords, the King of Swords, the Two of Wands, the Eight of Wands, the King of Cups, and the Tower. Now the Tower is very important because this eclipse happened in your 8th house. It's possible that some preconceived notions are being shattered alongside this eclipse when someone reaches out with Eight of Wands, which is very affirming, very positive information. It's possible that you thought something had come to an end, and for some of you, you are grieving the passing of a loved one. If that's the case, then I send you, of course, my deepest condolences. But there's something coming in to wake you up. Someone is telling you important information that is going to change your perspective. It's someone who has a very deep amount of authority in an issue. You're involved in a situation in which people are trying to organize themselves. And since it's the 8th house, we're talking about possibly money with other people. The King of Swords or the King of Cups could represent you regardless of gender. But I also feel like it could be two people outside of yourself that you're dealing with who are organizing something to do with money, something to do with possibly a business. For some of you, this involves your home, but there's some deliberations about how to organize things that is going to directly influence you. And so you need to pay attention to whatever energy they're bringing forth to you. A situation that you thought was over may come right up again and be very active. I think that you have some sense that you're dealing with a situation, you're aware of the situation, or you have some sneaky suspicion about a situation. If you have a sneaky suspicion about a situation, I just want to tell you that I think you're correct. I do think that a period of waiting is coming to an end and it's going to be over. And I think that you're leaking energy by being attached to something, possibly. And the fact that something is coming to an end, you're becoming aware of it. Any illusions that you feel about the situation are going to be dispelled and you're going to see it clearly. So you're leaking situation because it's not addressed. You're sitting by sort of watching it unfold. You're waiting for an answer. Maybe some other people have some sort of influence in the situation in which you have to wait for them to deliberate. And finally, whatever needs to happen is happening. And whatever you've been waiting on to happen is actually changing the whole situation around. And if you have visions about the situation, if you have some kind of personal insight, I think this is a confirmation that whatever you see in a situation is true. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back with more. You are going to be heavily impacted by the square between Mars and Pluto, but also we are going to talk about the kite probably tomorrow. So just come back and I'll do more tarot for you guys. Hey Pisces, let's take a look at your eclipse energy for the Virgo eclipse at 28 degrees and 59 minutes and the new moon at 29 degrees. So what we're looking at here is a decrease in pressure from your relationships. This is going to transition from now until 2027 Old agreements may end peacefully and naturally for you at this time. So if you have contracts with a company, something like that, this may come to an end at this time, especially if your contract is up and you feel like you're done there. You don't want to go back, that kind of thing. This might be a time in which that comes to an end. You may feel like there are less demands from your boss, or your bosses, people who are overseeing you, may be shifted around. So a boss that is very intense and grueling may be replaced with someone that's much more tolerant and empowering. I could see this time being the time at which you shift who you spend the most amount of time with. And I think that this is a moment in which there is a improvement in your relationships by putting yourself first. Now, this is a little bit of a story arc because Saturn is back in Pisces. So for the next several months until February 2026, it's likely that you're still going to be in environments that are critical of you. But after that, you're moving into a much more tolerant energy. And I think alongside this tolerant energy, you are going to find yourself in spaces that are more flexible, but also putting yourself more first. And so if you do have to negotiate a contract with a company that you work for or some kind of agreement, this is a good time to do it. Virgo is in your sign until October 13th. But also after October 13th in the 8th house in Libra, that's going to be a positive transit helping to negotiate contracts and make agreements. So you have a good month and a half, 2 months for that process to happen alongside this eclipse. One thing that I would be aware of, just this is not something that you need to worry about, but the legal nature of your relationships may be shifting under this eclipse. This may be a carryover from eclipses in Libra, maybe like finishing up of situations, but the dynamic between yourself and others, how you work with others, is going to change. Virgo in your 7th house at this time until October 13th is going to be very sweet for things like relationships, promotions at work, and other interpersonal dynamics. So you're going to feel closer to your best friends, closer to your boss, closer to your partner, improvement in relationships in your relationship with your partner. This eclipse can actually signal, that was a Freudian slip, a decrease in conflict with your partner as well. So if you've been bickering with your partner, you love them, you don't want to leave them, this eclipse might be a sign that you guys are finding your way back to each other, letting go of the unnecessary drama. So overall, this eclipse, you should expect a shift in relationships, less pressure, certain agreements may come to an end. For some of you, maybe relationships will come apart, but most likely your relationships will improve. Conflict will come to an end, and you may be asked to sign new agreements, changes of hierarchy at your workplace, new boss, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to play your tarot card reading now, and I'll catch you next time. Take care. Bye. Pisces, let's take a look at your tarot cards for this eclipse. So we have a lot of repeat cards. We have the 2 of Wands, the 4 of Swords, we have the Page of Cups, 6 of Cups. These cards have been showing up a lot. And then we have the 8 of Coins, which actually didn't show up a lot, but this is the Sun in Virgo card connected to Virgo season. We are in the last moments of Virgo season now. And then we have the 5 of Cups as well. So this eclipse is in your 7th house, which has to do with relationships. There's something about a relationship that was disappointing, that didn't work out, that felt heavy. And I think you came into this eclipse with some kind of resistance. It felt heavy or it felt burdensome. It wasn't easy for you to manage. But I think with this eclipse, there's a big turnaround for you in that respect. There's a reconnection here, which is the 6 of Cups and Page of Cups. Maybe finding the spark again or finding a connection. And that connection is found through looking practically at your connection or the circumstances around your connection, the 8 of Coins. So in other words, you see something about that person or they see something about you. And what you felt was lost or what you felt was almost lost sort of shows up again in a very strong way. To the so much so that I think that by this Page of Coins, you're looking to broaden this relationship by the end of this transit. So you may have felt sort of like it was not worth your time, or you didn't really feel like you were connected anymore. And suddenly you just find them again emotionally. You find that connection. And with the Page of Cups, what I like this, for those of you who are possibly going to have more kids or have kids, this could be something like suddenly you really want to have kids with that person. You feel like you just want to share. For everybody else, it could be like getting a pet together, sharing a pet, or you want to broaden your relationship with this person. And so what started off as a very apathetic looking reading, which is the Two of Wands, Four of Swords, and the Five of Cups, completely disconnected, not interested. Suddenly you see something in the situation and it's like, oh, there's actual substance here. There's something that I can celebrate, or something that draws me in. So awakening point. And from that, you look back on the situation in which you felt no sort of connection, or a connection that was sort of missing or falling apart, and you find it again. You find the thing that you love about it. It could be a person, or it could be a place. It could be a situation, but you're definitely moving from a place of apathy to renewed joy and renewed heartfelt connection. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with more readings. This is the end of the video, so I'll catch everybody later. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for watching my channel, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.